Hi there, Jeff from Balancer. We're very proud to be sponsors of this year's ETH Denver. Be sure to check out our booth. We have 50,000 in bounties available, one of which concerns the topic of this talk. So if you're a hacker and you like money, you may want to pay attention. Okay, all right. So, however, I'm not sure everyone necessarily knows what Balancer is and what it does. I've made that assumption before in the past and been wrong. So I'm going to start with a little intro of what we do and make sure we're all on the same page. And hopefully you'll be able to follow along better when we get to the main topic. So one way to think of Balancer is it's a generalization of the AMM concept that's focused on asset management. So AMMs were popularized by Uniswap in 2018. They offered two token liquidity pools with equal value tokens. So what Balancer did first is parameterize these kinds of pools. So instead of just 50-50, you could have 80-20 pools or 60-40. You could also change the swap fees. You could have a whole range from very low to very high for different use cases. And you could make them dynamic. They weren't necessarily fixed. You could change the weights, change the swap fees. And of course, we supported more tokens. We had a constant product invariant that supported up to 8 tokens on V1. So right away, even doing nothing else, that actually supported a lot of different kind of products on the platform. And so 80-20 pools, for instance, had unique tokenomics and high fee swing trade pools. But the mission of Balancer is to be the primary provider of programmable liquidity. And the way you get there is to be a platform, not a product or a set of products. So not just different pools, but different types of pools. And each type of pool is its own primitive. It can launch 1,000 projects. So I'll go over just a few of the pools primitives that we've already created. And this isn't the full list, and this is just ours. There's other pools that our partners have done. So to start with, we have liquidity bootstrapping pools. So those are used for fair token launches, and we've had several partners really take those and start running with them. Copper and Prime DAO, for instance. And they also do smart treasuries. You can use that for that. We have stable pools with special stable math for trading stable coins with very low liquidity, or very low or high liquidity and low slippage. We have both weighted and stable versions of pools that have oracles in them. So these are embedded oracles. You can query past prices. Then we have boosted pools for capital efficiency. That's the subject of this talk. And managed pools that are coming soon. Those are pools that go more in the TradFi direction. So what are boosted pools? I mentioned they were capital efficient and they're a type of stable pool. So we already have a stable pool called Stable 3. It has had pretty good liquidity, and it's just DAI, USDC, and Tether, hundreds of millions. But and it enabled easy trading of stable coins with low slippage, but they just kind of sat there. They weren't doing anything else. So we're migrating from that to what we call the boosted pool. So this is also the stable, kind of stable pool. We call it BBA USD. The A refers to AVA. So this stable pool is yield farming on AVA in the background very efficiently. In fact, about 95% of the liquidity is held on AVA in A tokens, and about 200 million at the moment. So I'll talk about these from really 3 perspectives. What are the benefits to users? And here I mean like traders and LPs. And then I'll look at the value to builders. So here I mean the pool creators, either people just launching new pools or even making new pool types. And then finally the opportunity this presents to integrators. So starting with users, what do traders get? Well, they get deep stablecoin liquidity first. We fully expect that most of the stablecoin liquidity on Balancer will migrate to these yield-generating pools. And the other thing you can do with these is direct swaps with A tokens. So you can do swaps between DAI and ADAI and even DAI and A Tether, and you don't have to leave the platform. So if you're a liquidity provider in this pool, so liquidity providers, of course, all of them have swap fee, APR, and many have liquidity mining. But with the boosted pool, you also have the AVA yield that you're generating. Now, of course, you'll notice we don't have 700% ape madness here. that's because these yields are sustainable. And Balancer's in it for the long run. And in the long run, we know that this era of liquidity mining and yield chasing won't last forever. And when the music stops, the protocols that survive will be those that can generate yield from sustainable long-term sources. And that's also needed for mass adoption. That's where we're going. So if you happen to have a position in the existing stable 3 pool, we do have a migration tool. One click, if you see this button, it means you got that. You can 1-click migrate. Maybe it's 2 clicks. Check the fees. It ain't cheap. But if you're a whale, it's definitely worth the migration. So how do they actually work, the boosted pools themselves? So I said it's a special kind of stable pool. And it's composed of an even more special type of pool called the linear pool. And these have many innovations. So first, the math is different. They have an invariant that uses the balances and rates. So there's always a main token. This, if we use the die example, the main token is die. And then the rate of that is always 1 by definition. And then there's a wrap token. So we'll say a die. And that rate is relative to the main token. And then we have this virtual BPT, or it's called phantom in the code. And that's responsible for a lot of the swap magic that I'll be describing in a minute. And there's also a sort of funding rate mechanism that incentivizes rebalancing these pools. Because you have, remember these pools are composed of the collateral token and the A token. And you want to have enough collateral token to facilitate easy trading, but not so much that it starts cutting into the yield. All right, so I'll describe that. And then there's a little twist in there too that derives from it being A tokens that I'll get to soon. So looking at the linear pools themselves, this is how they look. Now from the outside, this looks like a normal 2-token pool. Right, it has die and a die. And the way pools usually work is you have a vault interface. You interact with all the pools through the vault. The vault has, you can swap, you can join, and you can exit, and they're separate things, separate calls. So normally if you have a complex transaction that involves swaps and joins and exits, you can't do it in one transaction because you have to make separate calls. The vault is, of course, not reentrant, so if you're in a swap, you can't do a join then. So what this does is there's a secret kind of third hidden token, and it's the pool, the BPT of the pool itself. So it's kind of a self-referential thing. So what happens when you deploy these is it pre-mints all of its own BPT, and then it stores that in the vault along with the other tokens. So now what this lets you do is you're effectively joining and exiting just by a swap, right? Because normally when you do a join exit in a pool, the pool itself is minting and burning. So you transfer tokens in, they go to the vault, the pool mints BPT, and when you're exiting, you do the reverse. But here, the BPT is a token of the pool, so everything is a swap. And that enables you to do effective joins and exits right along with a bunch of other swaps. Now, I talked about the rebalancing, so there's like a lower limit here. You need to have enough tokens so that you can swap without running out, but you don't want too many or you'll cut into the yield. So there's a range in there where we call it the pool balanced. And in that zone, the free zone, there are no fees. So it's very efficient to trade in there. But if someone does a big trade and unbalances it, then what happens is they do pay a fee. And unlike most pools where the fees accrue to LPs, in this case, the pool they just sit there accumulating in the pools until there's a counter transaction that rebalances the pool. And then whoever does that, the pool distributes those fees to that rebalancer. So that's how that's what keeps these things in balance and keeps most of the tokens generating yield while also facilitating trading. And these rebalancers are also the people who are going out to AVA and doing the relatively expensive deposit and withdraw to wrap and unwrap the AVA tokens, and that makes it so that the retail users don't have to. Now the twist. We note that A tokens are actually rebasing tokens, and that means they can change their balances kind of asynchronously. And that does not play well in the vault. The vault has its own accounting, and it does not expect balances of tokens to suddenly change. So that means you can't put A tokens directly in the vault. You have to wrap them. So the A die shown in there in the linear pool is actually wrapped A die, and we are using the standard AVA wrappers for this. And all that really means And it's very cheap to wrap and unwrap these things. It's not like wrapping and unwrapping on AVA. All this means is that if you have an external A token operation, so if you're passing in an A token or you're pulling out an A token, that needs a relayer. And we have a batch relayer for this purpose. And it's pretty transparent to users. The UI will know if you need the relayer or not. If you do have to approve it the first time you use it, but it is just a signature. So it's pretty easy and transparent to users. And this is only needed because these are these rebasing tokens. If you had C die or Y die or other things that don't require, that we could put in the vault directly, then you don't need this. It's a lot simpler. So that was the linear pool components of the boosted pool, but now we're going to look at the boosted pool itself. So remember, it's a special kind of stable pool, and the specialness is it's again that virtual BPT that's just like the linear ones. So the stable pool is it's called a stable phantom pool in the code, and it is composed, the one we deployed is composed of 3 linear pool BPTs and its own BPT. So, and this layering here that's what enables the combinatorics. So you can swap, if you have, you're constructing a swap, you can swap within the linear pools and then between the linear pools within the boosted pool. So say you want to go from die to A tether, right? Ordinarily, if these were not this kind of pools, you'd have to be joining and exiting and wrapping and unwrapping everything. But here, it's one transaction, one batch swap with 3 components. You do the first swap is within the linear die pool. You send your die in, you get the BPT of that die linear pool. Now remember that the boosted pool has these BPTs as its pool tokens, and you got to get to tether somehow. So you can simply swap the die BPT for the tether BPT. Now you're in the world of tether, and then you simply do the final swap in the linear tether pool to pull out the AUSDT. And again, because we've got A tokens, you have this little batch relayer step that's necessary for that. If you had other tokens, you wouldn't need to do that. So how do you build on these things? So we have it, it's out there, it's deployed, what do you do with it? Well, you can do a lot right out of the box. So for instance, you can simply deploy your own pool with the boosted pool BPT and whatever token you want. And immediately you get concentrated liquidity between your token and all 6 of these stable coins, including the yield generating ones. All right, now of course it doesn't have to be a weighted pool. You could also deploy a metastable pool with the boosted pool API and some different stable coin. And if you want to do a little more work, remember these are primitives. So you can build on these linear and phantom stables to boost a completely different set of yield tokens. So you can, in fact, we're working with Overnight Finance to build a 4626 compatible linear pool. When that comes out, so 4626 is a standard for yield, a standard wrapper for yield generating tokens. So if you have a 4626 compatible wrap token, you can directly create a linear pool from it when we deploy this. And then from those linear pools, you can use the Phantom stable to make your own boosted pools with any arbitrary lending platform. So they're very powerful. And then looking at the integration opportunities. So here I'm talking about aggregators and smart wallets, Zapper, Zerion, that sort of thing. The first benefit it has is it simplifies the operations or the paths that it has to do. So rather than it doesn't have to go out to all these different protocols. It can keep everything within Balancer. It doesn't have to go to Curve and all these other places. It enables, just by itself, it enables very advanced applications. So we have a boosted USD pool. What if someone made a boosted Euro pool? I don't think Ava wraps Euros, but if somebody did and someone made a boosted Euro pool, then you could do maybe a weighted or maybe a metastable pool of these 2 boosted pools. And now you pretty much have one pool that is basically a Forex exchange by itself, plus it generates a yield. So that's one of the things that's possible that this kind of technology and these primitives make possible. And the interface to it now is kind of a work in progress. We have a batch relayer, and that's what's needed for kind of large swaps and these little wrapping and wrapping of the rebasing tokens. And it figures out all the details of how to construct the batch swaps and pass it into the vault. And then we have the SOR layer kind of on top of that abstracts that a little bit more. and has a simpler interface. And then we have an SDK kind of on top of that. And we now have an SDK team that his entire job is to make this easy. So the SDK, we're working toward having this SDK with a just dirt simple interface to all these complex functionalities, and just make it very easy to use for integrators. So I threw a lot at you there. I told you what I was going to say, and I said it, and now it's time to tell you what I said. So what is the boosted pool value proposition? Right? Again, from the user perspective, what do users get? They get direct swaps with yield tokens without having to go wrap and unwrap themselves. You also get deep, concentrated stablecoin liquidity. And you have this organic, sustainable yield that will withstand the test of time. If you're a pool creator, you get immediate, instant combinatoric stablecoin liquidity with whatever tokens you want. And, of course, you get the yield participation also. You get the benefit, and all your LPs get the benefit of that. And you have these primitives to work with. So these generalize. You can do completely new lending protocols, completely new yield tokens. Really, you don't even need to do yield tokens. The linear pool mechanism is very general. It really has to do with wrapping and unwrapping. So you could probably even, if you had a token that had some other benefit for wrapping and unwrapping, you could probably do that and make the rates all one and make something else with it. All right, 1 minute, okay. And for the integrators, their main benefit is the simpler workflow, and like I said, they don't have to go out to to Curve and then go out to Ava and then go to Balancer. All goes within Balancer, and it enables these kind of advanced trading applications that I've already described. So I think I might be almost out of time, but if there's any questions, or